Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
Welcome to SciTech Culture, the show where we discuss science, technology and culture, either individually or where they intersect. My name's Ben Warner, one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my good friend, colleague and fellow co-host, Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, thanks, Ben. Hello, SciTech Culture fans, and we're talking about my favourite subject today, the future.
Yep,
2015.
Absolutely. So we're actually going to finish up the show with this episode today, so that and we'll explain a bit more about what we'll be doing over the next month or so later. But we normally around this time when we're finishing up for the year, we'll talk about what's happening for in the future, what's coming up for the coming year, and obviously, there's a lot going on in science and technology and also how that impacts on our culture. We've, discussed cloud computing and that sort of thing before, but and the internet and the way devices have shaped our lives. And I think it's good to revisit it again because it really is going to have a major impact going forward, and specifically in 2015, I think we're starting to see more of a convergence of all of these things coming together. And as we were just discussing before we got on, Steve, about this idea of tracking everything you do into this,
Yep.
And it's because the apps are done in such a way so that it's very pervasive and very actually easy to sort of collate this data automatically. You're going to have, people are going to have a wealth of data online in the cloud, which they can sort of log into at any point and deduce something from it, and maybe they could use that data to change the way they approach things, the way they do things. And 2015, we're going to see a lot more of this sort of thing, especially with a lot of wearables, a lot more wearables, I should say. We've had wearables sort of come through already, but I guess you've got the Apple Watch and then the sort of flow and effect from a lot of those things. Just compared to even like 10 years ago, this is just an incredible sort of transformation in terms of how we approach things. How do you see it evolving at the moment?
Well, this is what they call the Internet of Things. I mean, chips today are so small. You can put them in a phone, you can put them in a watch, you can put them in a Fitbit. And you can carry things around. And now the business this is what we use the apps for, is connecting those things together. We can take data, all your locations in a day, all your financial transactions in a day, your heart rate over the day, how much exercise you got, what you ate, how you were feeling, all of those things. And at the same time, you can control your air conditioning from your phone. You can do a whole range of things that are starting to really connect our world. So very much the same way that social media has revolutionized communications in the last 10 years, I would say next year is probably the start of the other part of the communications revolution, where everything talks to everything.
Yeah, and that's quite an amazing sort of concept. And again, if I just bring up that comparison to 10 years ago, it's almost, we would have thought that was the stuff of science fiction in that sense, up until that point, just a mere 10 years ago, because we weren't doing anything even remotely close to this sort of thing back then.
True.
I mean, we had the internet and maybe we were sharing stuff on Facebook and things like that, but nowhere near to the level of, extent to what it is today. And it's not all, and again, we'll bring up the Orwellian thing as well. I mean, there's that old adage that, this is bad, you can be tracked or whatever, but we'll raise it again that I think the Orwell view of the future didn't take into account the positives of all of this. This. And the fact is that, maybe there's all this data in the cloud, but unless you're really interesting to certain types of agencies or whatever, they're probably not going to be interested in in what you're putting up there anyway.
There's far too much data for any agency actually to be able to work with it at this stage. But with big data, they'll develop processes. Maybe in 5 years, 10 years, they'll be able to know exactly what we're doing. But we've spoken about it a lot, Ben, over the last few years. It's the public willingly giving that information. And why would you be afraid of the government knowing what you're doing when you don't mind that Google knows? So, like, you know, these things we will have to work through as a society, and this is really where technology and culture do collide. But so far, people have quite willingly given up this information.
And it seems like that, and it seems like they've had reasonable experiences, reasonably positive experiences with it all as well.
Well, big data improves our lives, ultimately. You know, it improves your ability to, you know, monitor your health and improve your health, improve your lifestyle. It gives you a whole range of access to services. And to be quite honest, once government finally catches up with the tech revolution, you know, there'll be no more hanging on the phone for an hour to talk to somebody in a government service, because big data will allow the communications that are required to happen a lot more quickly and instantly. So I think people have to appreciate that. And, you know, for whatever we are giving up in terms of freedom or privacy, there are enormous benefits. And I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, they will be big benefits for society. Although, as I've always have cautioned, I think there is going to be one incident soon in the next decade, I'm sure. And it won't be, you know, stealing people's credit card numbers. It'll be something else that will shake the very foundations of society's trust
in this system that's coming up at the moment. One other thing too, that just from a device standpoint, I think we're getting even closer now to this notion of not having solo or siloed devices where you know, they're not talking to each other.
That's right.
A lot of the obviously I've got all the a lot of Apple hardware that I use, as long-time listeners of us know, and I've noticed with the most recent operating systems, now that I've had a chance to sort of play with the handoff and continuity features that were introduced into Yosemite and iOS 8, that there's a real connection between all of the devices that you have now. And it really feels like I'm not thinking anymore. Not that I've been thinking like this anyway recently, but it seems to have gone even further now, that it doesn't register with me anymore. Oh, I've got to go to the laptop to do this, or I've got to, you know, I mean, in certain instances, like for example, recording this video, of course, I'll need to obviously use the MacBook Pro for that, because that's the only device that can do it. But for just general everyday tasks, we're not really thinking anymore. I'm not thinking anymore, at least, about that sort of thing. And that's, I think, going to become even more so, I think, next year.
Well, I thought that had been underlined in the last couple of weeks with Microsoft making Word free, you know, across, you know, basically your mobile devices.
Yep.
You know, that's a complete turnaround in their business thinking. But it shows, one, that there's a demand, and two, that they can't afford, you know, to exclude themselves from any device. Yep. And I think that's a great step forward by them. But it goes to show, you're absolutely right, Ben, you'll use whatever tools at hand. It's just like a box of tools. Do you go get, you know, the big screwdriver or the little screwdriver? You get the one that's going to do the job. That's
right. And just on a minor thing with Microsoft, and their, if anyone that's got the Office 365 home subscription, they announced too about the unlimited cloud storage, which is quite amazing, really. And just experimenting with that as another type of backup for your data. I mean, assuming, of course, that you've got a very strong password, and if you've got two-step authentication and all that sort of thing in place, that becomes a very viable now backup solution if you've got, especially if you've got a lot of data. And it's interesting to work with, I think. It might not... They've throttled the upload and download speed, but at the very least,
they have to.
Yeah, but at the very least, you have the ability to store whatever you want in the cloud as a backup, which previously you would have to spend money with third-party providers to do. You probably, you know, for the everyday person, they probably wouldn't be aware or feel comfortable doing it that way, because Microsoft would probably have that cachet of, yeah, you can trust us to, you know, keep your data safe in that sense.
I guess so. I mean, I don't know what the rankings are. Who's more trustworthy, Google, Apple, Microsoft? I'd love to know.
Well, on that one, I believe
the government.
You have, according to various articles I've read, you follow the where they make their money. So Google, in that respect, is probably the least trustworthy because they're making money off your data and through search, and whereas companies like Apple and Microsoft make it off products and software. So, but then again, they're all probably learning off each other about how to make money off of us and our data anyway. So,
sure, they're already optimizing.
Yeah, exactly right. But it just goes to show that it's interesting that all these services are available in the way that they are, and it provides you with a lot more options, which, again, we're going to see further pushed the further we go forward. And I'm sure we'll see some more exciting announcements going forward through the next year in terms of that. But yeah, it's very interesting in terms of technology. And I mean, I know we keep coming back to things like devices and the big tech players and that, but actually it's very crucial on a consumer level and a cultural level to mention these things, because the mobile devices these guys have created have really changed our behavior in terms of how we interact and go about our daily lives, I think. And it's important to keep mentioning that.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely unquestionable. We do. We have changed our lives because of these devices. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. We might mention a couple of science topics too. There's a lot going on, and obviously we mentioned in a previous episode recently about the Philae probe and how that's all going. And you had a couple here that you mentioned just in the notes that you sent to me about the Horizons probe reaching Pluto, the official end to the Curiosity mission. So there's a lot going on in terms of space travel, and I think that's actually, space travel, it's space exploration, but that's actually another interesting one that's sort of sneaking up in the background, I think, that could become a lot more important in the next decade.
Yeah, look, these are the things that we always ask, are we there yet? Have I got a bionic arm? Can you regenerate my my organs? Can I get to outer space? We're getting a lot closer every step. And the New Horizons program, they launched that in 2001 when Pluto was still a planet, believe it or not. And they sent it out there to check out Pluto and a few other objects in the Kuiper Belt, which will be very interesting.
Yeah.
And so we'll get unparalleled views of Pluto very shortly. Where it is right now, it takes 4 hours for light to reach from the sun. So we're starting to get into some pretty deep space.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just fascinating. So, where we might have thought, I'm just thinking space, science in general, maybe medicine too, if we bring that up, we've seen, some of these guys coming out with statements saying we're going to discover this in the next 10 years or 20 years, we're going to do this. And it sounded almost at the time that it might be a bit fanciful, but maybe it isn't really, because, you see these news stories keep coming out of what they're pushing and trying to find. And it looks like they'll be able to get a lot of these things up and running sooner than what we think.
Well, yeah, and they're developing new materials now all the time that they're finding new functions for. So graphene now apparently could be used to filter hydrogen atoms out of the atmosphere, which is a fuel source. So, all of these things give us steps, to do different things, to do things in different ways. And, I think the thing is, none of these things, you never get one, or you very rarely, maybe once in 1,000 years, do you get one invention that changes everything. And the silicon chip was one of those. But even if we look back, that's taken 50 or 60 years to have the impact that it's had. So that is an incident in human history, but for us, it's a lifetime still anyway. But we're starting to see the evolution of this, or revolution of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Guess I'm hanging out for those space elevators at any rate. I might not go up in the Virgin Galactic ship, but the space elevator intrigues me. Then hanging out in the space station for a couple of days or something.
Yeah, Ben, look, the reality is that give it another generation or two, people will be able to live in space, certainly holiday in space. And they're already living there now, but more people live and work in space. And by 2030, I'm sure we'll be making regular trips to the moon again.
Yeah, absolutely. We also should mention on a side, again, moving aside from that, climate change as well. We've spoken about that in the past, and I guess things ratchet up a notch, at least politically, with that sort of very public agreement between the US and China about tackling emissions
Yes.
and how that was going to change the game. And I think it seems like in terms of this debate, even though, that we will use that term liberally, that was the type of thing that I think everyone's been waiting for. Of course, they have to implement it. And I'd actually put my money on the Chinese implementing it first rather than the US, because when they want to do something, they just go and do it without much mucking around. But
I think the other advantage that they have is they're very greenfield, so they're building a lot of this stuff from scratch. So they don't have a lot of the hangovers or a lot of the old style thinking. If they want to go and build something new, they go and build it new, and they use the best technology. And I think that's what that actually shows, is that new technology is a lot better than the old technology.
Yeah.
But any fan of science, technology, and culture will know that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was that was actually, I thought, a very important announcement for these two countries to make, because, well, they're the ones that are really going to shape the tackling of this problem. So the fact that they did that is very encouraging, I think.
Yeah, it's great.
And we might now wrap up just our discussion on this. There was an interesting article I found on informationage.com about data science and how it's becoming a more relevant and more sought after occupation, in that because it's becoming a lot more relevant in the way it's working. Basically, they're saying here, nearly every enterprise will have data scientists that will do more than just studying customer behavior. They will expand into new areas such as data forensics to combat rising cyber threats and create new types of businesses based on data services, which is a adjunct to what we were talking about before in terms of all this data being collected. I guess someone's got to go in there and sort of sort it out and deduce things from it. So that's a whole new career field that probably didn't exist before.
Oh, look, absolutely. And I think, it's very interesting, not only new careers, new threats. So one of the things that, probably counterintuitively would be a threat to big data is actually false data in the big data. So it's not even about personalized data being in there. It's the fact that if you can corrupt that data but still make it look meaningful, you can get people to make decisions that are just plain wrong. So, for people that want to, wage their little wars or whatever it is, their angry thoughts on the internet, that's probably one way to really disrupt technology and society at the same time.
Well, create your own virtual identity and no one would know the difference.
Well, that's the other thing. We've all seen the old sci-fi scenarios where you can do that. So there'll be a whole range of different ways to create privacy. And I actually agree with you, Ben. I think probably the next big criminal
undertaking
undertaking won't be BitTorrenting movies. It'll actually be creating false identities.
Yeah. Yep.
So you can be private. So you can be anyone you like on the internet.
Forget about those fake passports. It'll be...
Yeah, you'll be whoever you like to be on the internet, which was, in fact, the way the internet started. It's only been Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter that has made us, or made people want to be visible. I think that'll change, though.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Steve, we'll stop there on those things. We could talk about a whole range of things, but I thought that those were some interesting topics to cover, and we'll probably return to a lot of them in 2015, amongst other things. We'll have a whole year to devote to talking about these various topics, so looking forward to that. But I guess I just wanted to finish up by saying, we're going to finish up the show for 2014 with this episode. And it's like a nice little BBC series run to start us off 6 episodes in, so that's all good. I think it was quite an enjoyable start, and looking forward to how it's going to be going forward. And just over the next month or so, we're not going to be totally quiet. Obviously, we won't be doing the show, but we'll be producing other content. We're going to have a look back at our website, and we've mentioned before that we're going to be producing a lot more different content. So we're going to spend the next month or so focusing on that before returning to our regular show here in 2015. So looking forward to that, Steve. Should be good.
Me too.
Absolutely. All right, just wrapping up now. Don't forget our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links there, and obviously interact with us as well on Twitter, Facebook, and Google+. So I'd love to hear from you. We've got a whole lot of content on that website. So if you think anyone's interested, not only in this show, but in all the content we've got on our website, feel free to send them there. We'd greatly appreciate it. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.